Assalamualaikum to Associate Professor Dr. Zaherawati Zakaria, the panels, Sir Tunku Nashril, Tunku Abaidah and Dr. Zaini, Zainal, Abidin. Today, we are from Group 34, 6D, would like to perform Viva presentation on the topic of the effects of pandemic Covid-19 towards mental health among FSPPP students at UiTM Kedah. Before we start, allow me to introduce the presenters. My name is Nadia Azman and followed by Intan Nazifa.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Intan from Jonid. I will present about the background of the study. The COVID-19 pandemic had a huge impact in all aspects of human life, especially in terms of human mental health. The rapid spread of the virus has made the government take the initiative by implementing movement restriction to stop the spread of the virus. As a result, all school and university had to close. For example, University Technology Mara has taken proactive measures to implement online learning. In a previous study, it was stated that the rapidly increasing spread of COVID-19 virus has affected the mental health of students. There were various impacts and effects faced by students during the COVID-19 pandemic. Next is about the problem statement. During the COVID-19 pandemic, all students had to go through online distance learning. There are many studies that have proven the mental health of students is affected very badly as a result of COVID-19 because the transformation of traditional classroom to online environment. It affects the mental health of students. It is already very extreme worrying and some students experience the most extreme level of anxiety. It is important for all parties to recognize the forms of stress faced by all students and how to overcome them in an effort not to jeopardize their study. Therefore, a study will be made to find out more what are the real circumstances that related to mental health among students during online distance learning. This study attempts to reveal the extent of students' mental health and what causes are related to the variables that affect mental health among students during COVID-19 pandemic. Now I will present about the research question. The first research question that has been proposed is what is the extent of mental health among FSPPP students at UiTM Kedah. Secondly is what is the significant difference in gender and mental health among students. Thirdly is what is the relationship between student attitudes and mental health among students. The fourth research question is what is the relationship between financial status and mental health among students. The fifth research question is what is the relationship between current mode of study and mental health among students. And the last research question is what is the most influential factor that contributes to mental health among students at UiTM Kedah. Next is about the research objective of the study are as follows: to know the extent of mental health among FSPP students at UiTM Kedah, to identify the significant difference in gender and mental health among students, to identify the relationship between student attitudes and mental health among students, to determine the relationship between financial status and mental health among students, to identify the relationship between current mode of study and mental health. Lastly is to identify the most influential factor that contributes to mental health among students at UiTM Kedah. Next is about the conceptual framework. It gives an understanding on whether independent variable can help to identify the mental health problems among students or not. The dependent variable in this research was mental health. This study aims to find out whether students can survive or not during online classes and to see what student reaction and action on this issue. The independent variable were gender, student attitudes, financial status and mode of study. There are significant differences and relationship between this independent variable with mental health. Next is about the research methodology. This research used an online questionnaire form by distributing a Google form link to the Faculty of Administrative and Policy Study or known as FSPPP located in UiTM Kedah. This method of data collection to be used is an online survey questionnaire among researchers and respondents. According to Zakaria, the sample size larger than 30 and lesser than 500 are considered as the most appropriate for majority of research. Taking into account Zakaria advice, the researchers selected 100 students from 1,108 FSPP students, which was 50 students from diploma level and 50 students from degree level. In this study, the sampling technique used by the researcher is cluster sampling by determining the population. In this research, the types of scales used consisted of three, namely nominal scale, ordinal scale, and interval scale. In this study, the researcher used four types of data analysis, which are descriptive analysis, t-test, correlation, and multiple regression analysis. The research methodology has been used by the researcher to measure the extent, relationship, and significant difference between the independent variable and dependent variable. For the first research objective is to know the extent of mental health among FSPPP students at UiTM Kedah. To answer the first research question, namely what is the extent mental health among FSPPP student at UiTM Kedah. Based results show in the table, it can be concluded that the extent of mental health among FSPPP student at UiTM Kedah is stable, as the main value for each question independent variable, namely mental health, score a value of more than 2.5. That's all from me. Now I will pass to the next presenter.
Moving on to research objective 2, which is to identify the significant difference in gender and mental health among students. For this second objective, the HO, there is no significant difference in gender and mental health among students. As for the HA, there is a significant difference in gender and mental health among students. Based on the result from the current findings, it shows that the Levine's test shows all population variances are assumed to be equal. This is because P equals to 0.671. Based on the results, it shows that there is no significant difference in gender and mental health among students. This is because P is 0.909, P is greater than 0.05. Therefore, HO is accepted. However, current finding does not reflect the previous findings. According to Prowse, Charette, and Abaidah 2021, there is a significant difference in gender and mental health, whereby the p-value is lesser than 0.05. The findings from this scholar is also similar to Getz-Dottir and others 2021, whereby there is a significant difference in gender and mental health among students. P is equals to 0.035. Similarly, females are more affected than male from the reported percentage based on these two previous findings. Now, let's look at research objective 3, which is to identify the relationship between student attitudes and mental health among students. Here, the HO, there is no significant relationship between student attitudes and mental health among students. The HA, there is a significant relationship between student attitudes and mental health among students. When it comes to the current findings, the table shows a significant positive relationship between student attitudes and mental health among students, whereby the p-value is lower than 0.05. R is 0.79, which indicates a strong strength of relationship. Thus, HA is accepted. The current findings also reflect the previous findings, whereby there is a relationship between student attitudes and mental health by Ilarionova and others, as well as Knowles and Kurtman. Both these scholars agree ODL leads to change in student attitudes in a positive way, and this improves the mental health. Moving on to the research objective 4, which is to identify the relationship between financial status and mental health among students. Here, HO, there is no significant relationship between financial status and mental health among students. And HA, there is a significant relationship between financial status and mental health among students. Based on the current findings, there is a significant relationship between financial status and mental health among students, whereby R equals to 0.401, P equals to 0.000. This shows that p-value is lesser than 0.05, showing a moderate relationship. The findings in this study reflects the findings discovered by previous researchers. The previous researchers had presented there is a significant relationship between financial status and mental health among students, whereby R equals to 0.565, P lesser than 0.05. However, the strength of the relationship in the previous study differs from the current study, whereby R equals to 0.565 shows a strong strength of relationship. The findings are also consistent with the previous researchers, whereby financial status is the factor that influences mental health of students, which contributes to greater stress. For research objective 5, to identify the relationship between mode of study and mental health among students. HO, there is no significant relationship between current mode of study and mental health among students, whereas HA, there is a significant relationship between current mode of study and mental health among students. The current findings shows that there is a significant positive relationship between current mode of study and mental health among students, whereby R equals to 0.644, P equals to 0.000. This shows that P is lesser than 0.05. R shows a strong strength of the relationship. Thus, HA is accepted. In these findings, the mode of study for full students shows a positive impact towards mental health, whereby full-time students feel happier and more satisfied during online learning as compared to part-time students. However, another study reflects that part-time students are more at benefit, whereby online learning enhances part-time students' problem-solving skills. The sixth research objective is to know the most influential factor that contributes to mental health. Based on the current findings, among all the tested independent variables, it shows that student attitudes is the most influential factor that contribute to mental health. We can see that the beta value is highest, which is 0.467, and is significant. Moreover, all independent variables have explained 64% of variance in mental health among FSPPP students. However, referring to previous findings, it has been discovered that educational variable was the most influential factor with beta value 0.327. Let's further discuss about recommendations to help increase the mental health among students. The first recommendation is increase online interaction among students during ODL. Students that have lower grades or in first semester will need to be involved more in class discussion during ODL. This is because the learning environment at home may be inadequate and not suitable for students, which leads to students feel too much pressure or burn out. Secondly, an awareness campaign. Awareness and education should be implemented through university community on the nature, prevalence, and effects of mental health. A policy resolve mental health and service available in helping depressed students while studying online. Thirdly, improve education system. The Ministry of Education needs to diversify creative ways to reduce a student's stress and need to consider flexibility in encouraging students to engage in critical thinking. Moreover, lecturers need to design learning activities where students are trained to express their opinions. The first research limitation is regarding respondents' feedback. This is because some of the respondents did not understand the questionnaire. Consequently, the respondent felt rather confused and produced a subjective feedback. Moreover, obtaining 100 respondents were difficult as the respondents were not interested in answering the questions. Secondly, quantitative method. This is because quantitative methods cannot analyze a respondent's perspective in research because there are limits to findings. Thirdly, variable. The researchers had to remove few questions under gender after the Cronbach alpha value showed poor result. To conclude, the research called the effects of pandemic COVID-19 towards mental health among FSPPP students in UiTM Kedah. The background of study mentioned about since the outbreak of COVID-19, government has implemented movement restrictions in Malaysia, and this means closure of university. Consequently, ODL has been introduced among local universities. Referring to problem statement, the mental health of university students have been reported to be at risk. Thus, this research aims to know the effect of pandemic towards mental health among FSPPP students in UiTM Kedah. What are the conditions or circumstances that relates to mental health during online learning? In research methodology, the researchers had utilized online questionnaire, cluster sampling, and types of scale known as nominal, ordinal, and interval. Moreover, the types of analysis that has been conducted were descriptives, t-test, correlation, and multiple regression analysis. Based on the hypothesis tested, the extent of mental health among students in UiTM Kedah during online learning is considered stable. There is no significant difference in gender and mental health among students. Student attitudes, financial status, and mode of study shows a significant relationship with mental health. Several recommendations such as increased online interaction, awareness campaign, and improved educational system in order to improve mental health among students during ODL. However, limitations such as respondent feedback, quantitative method, and variable were faced by researchers throughout this study. That is all from us. Thank you.